Hey there. So the last I don't know, 5 hours worth of videos I haven't been able to post. Two were like these technical issues just kept stopping the videos from being posted. And then I just kept getting the feeling like, okay, maybe the stuff I've started sharing is a little too much right now, you know? So I think maybe in the future. Also, I don't even know what I'm wearing. Like, what is this? Okay. Yeah, so my aunt gave me a bunch of clothes, and they were in this suitcase in my spare room. And I have been putting off going to the laundromat. And so I got that suitcase out and put this on, and it's a little old lady-ish, to be honest, but I'm just wearing it because I don't know, I just got this thing about going to the laundromat. I don't want to go there anymore. Like, I just don't. Like, I can't imagine. It's the germs, it's the... you know, even though, like, the soap is washing and stuff, it's just like... yeah, no more. So I bought a washing machine. It's on its way. So I can wear this to bed until I can wash my other pajamas. That's where I'm at, guys. I noticed that the most popular reading as of late, out of what did get posted, was what needs to be said. So I thought, let's do a more in-depth version of that. Okay, what needs to be said? I'm just looking for, like, pics. Hold on, let me grab a couple things. All right, here are the pics. So it's going to be deception, pick 1, projection, pick 2, and blame, pick 3. Take a deep breath. Use your own intuition to decide if one or more of these has a message for you. We're going to start with deception. Okay, pick 1. What is the situation going on with you? I just started watching this show called Playing House on Roku. It's actually a little bit entertaining, but I guess not entertaining enough for me not to venture off and decide to do this instead, right? I guess some of you watching could consider me an old lady anyway, when I mentioned this is an old lady shirt. But, okay, first we got Gemini. Listen to doubt. Proserpina, which is kind of like another version of Persephone. 3 to 4 years, 7 to 8 months. Self-delusion. Nessus. Nessus is the centaur who was... I just realized I was facing these towards you, but they need to be facing towards me. It's like I'm out of practice or something. Nessus is the centaur who was known to signify like abusive things. Like he's also a liar, he's manipulative, and he was lacking boundaries. But also this is a representative of an asteroid, and when I see Nessus in the chart, I know that this can either mean that we're abusive or that we're healing abuse. So it can signify both. We've got the truth here. So deception, now truth, harmonics. You can feel what the truth is in this situation, okay? And this is something that you'll have to like kind of get quiet and present with yourself in order to feel. If you think about harmonics, it's like what the notes that work together, the notes that complement each other, creating a harmony. And that's what the truth can do. When you look at abuse or lies, deception. In terms of energy, it feels a lot different, darker, heavier. It feels like your heart wants to close. It feels like I need protection, potentially, when those come about. Whereas the truth feels like freedom, feels like aha, feels like that sits well with me. In general, we're coming to a time where the truth is becoming more and more apparent, and people who are hesitant to look at the truth, who are more comfortable with deluding themselves, are going to feel a lot of pressure to kind of change that, right? Because the truth is just coming out now. The truth is it. You can decide to be open to the truth, or you can cut yourself off from it, but that also cuts you off from vitality. And vitality is literally what you need to stay alive. It's the life force. All right, so we got Earth Angel here. Earth Angel landed next to Saturn, which is next to Nessus. And it's almost like some abusive situation, something that you learned the truth about it, revealed that it was an unfair power struggle, sort of abusive dynamic, dysfunctional, perhaps you could even put it, unfair power struggle kind of thing going on. And it was like at the same time that was happening, you're kind of telling yourself a different story about it, where maybe you're making excuses for it, justifying it, whether you're the abuser or the abused. One of these things is going on where you're kind of telling yourself like a story to make it tolerable, I guess. But this spread is saying like this was actually part of what your soul came here to learn about. So even though you may have been confused by the situation because you felt led into it through signs and symbols and synchronicities, right? And these omens made you feel like this is meant for me, this situation. So that kind of could have put you in this place where you were willing to lie to yourself about what it actually was. Like, oh, this is meant for me. I wouldn't be led here if it wasn't meant for me. Well, right, it was meant for you, but maybe for different reasons. Maybe, excuse me, your soul is trying to learn something about the harmonics, meaning how it feels, how the truth feels. And in order to really know what the truth feels like, you want the contrast. And that's the benefit of coming to Earth, right? Because we experience things with the contrast. So the contrast of that would be to experience the lie, deception, delusion, abusive kind of stuff, right? The lie, the deception, the self-delusion could have been in what you told yourself about whether or not you had to be in this situation, right? Like maybe you failed to take responsibility for it, and you kept maybe dejecting to the signs, like, oh, this must mean something. There's something here about your public image, your reputation, or work as well. So this could have played out there, or it could have kept you from those places. Could have made work harder or your reputation harder, or not what you wanted it to be. But I feel like there was some sort of commitment to having this experience. I want to clarify why Juno is here. Juno is the asteroid to represent the wife of Jupiter. She was very devoted, and you could call her like the good wife, because even though Jupiter wasn't faithful, She stayed faithful. She was loyal. Why is Jupiter here? I mean, Juno. Isn't that interesting? The truth. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I verified Juno. Now on the board, Juno is sitting next to Vibilia, which is the truth. Then I had Juno. And then I asked for clarification of Juno. I got Vera, which is also the truth. I think you stayed devoted to a situation even though it wasn't fair to you. 12 weeks or 12 days might be a significant amount of time as well when it comes to that devotion. Either breaking down, the realization of it, how long you were devoted, how long it's taking to break out of it. There were doubts all along the way, so you may have been questioning this quite a bit all along the way too. Oh, and you were really, really clued into that subtle energy. You are able to feel subtle energy, and so that may have been confusing as well, because if some other person that you were committed to was involved, then you were picking up on a lot of their energy and amplifying it through yourself. So even though that energy exists in you too, it was quite amplified, and that could have been a little overwhelming. But this is to show you how capable you are of understanding harmony, of feeling subtle energy, of navigating through your own vessel. And then we've got breakthrough and highest good. So in a matter of 12 days to 12 weeks, there may be this breakthrough, unless you've already had it, which is going to lead you to understanding how this was in the highest good. How was this in your highest good? How this served you, right? Where is all the gold in this situation, which may have been really long-standing. We've got 3 to 4 years here. And then we've got 7 to 8 months. 7 to 8 months could have been the length of time where you start questioning it and doubting and trying to like figure out why you're in it and like try to break out of it, right? The reason I'm saying it's another person is because we've got Juno here, but it could be a job. It could be that a job started to feel not right, or you were just kept telling yourself because all the signs led you to it. And really, it's just not, you know, something that you can vibe with anymore. It could really be anything that you committed yourself to on the premise that you were led into it with signs and synchronicities and some sort of magnetic pull even, which could be like the karmic thing, Saturn's restrictions and responsibilities here, pulling you in to make sure you experienced this thing. And it could have been karma from another lifetime where you're trying to learn the other side of something. It could have been that, but it doesn't have to be. All right, so given this being the situation, what needs to be said? What needs to be said? Now, these things that we're talking about that need to be said don't necessarily need to be said out loud to any other person. And you might recognize it as something that someone needs to say to you. And if you do recognize it that way, I do urge you to take another look and see if there's any way that that would apply to you instead of projecting it onto the other, just in case. So sometimes what needs to be said is just a way for us to clarify the bigger picture of a situation. It doesn't necessarily mean you should run out and say these things, okay? That's all up to you. We're asking Spirit, though, what needs to be said. So in the highest good of all, what needs to be said. And this could be something that Spirit wants to say to you as well. What needs to be said? Pride is holding me back. So in this situation where you were led into something, you were committed to it, and then it started to not work for you, but you kind of kept keeping yourself there with some sort of delusion, that could have been because pride said to you like that you didn't want to be wrong. You know, if you don't want to be wrong, then pride could kind of keep you from letting yourself see the truth of a situation. But I also want to add that, like, it's only the psyche that thinks, oh, this is wrong. Now that I realize what it is, it's wrong for me to be here. But actually, this whole reading started out by telling you this was an experience that your soul meant to have. So it's not actually wrong. Let's balance this out. What needs to be said? Let's balance this out. So this is like, drop your pride and actually let's get real with what is and stop resisting what is. Accept what things are so that you can balance it out. Balancing it out means accepting all sides of it, becoming neutral on it, creating 0 point. What needs to be said? Thank you for the lessons. Right? So look at the person you were when you started this whole situation, and then look at the person you are now. Can you see the difference? Can you see the benefits that you actually received from being in this situation? Whatever you learned, all the things you learned. What needs to be said? Keep it simple. Right? Just, you don't have to make it more than it is. The spinning top came out. In terms of what needs to be said, this means like any communication is going to make things kind of change really quick in this. Or any coming to terms with the truth in this matter could also change things around really quick. And this wishing well is a wish come true. So if there was any like jadedness or lost hope as a result of this situation, this is kind of wanting you to know, like, you don't have to go there with it. Like, this was a valuable piece of your journey. So it does lead to your wish fulfillment. So what you learned here is really important. And keep it simple can also mean work with what you've found out about yourself, one piece of information at a time, one truth at a time. All the lies are going to be coming to light, and it really makes sense for us at this time to kind of be very gentle with ourselves. You know, we don't have to like pay back karma. Karma is literally just a repeating energy, a looping energy that we continue to experience while we haven't balanced it out. So once we balance it out, we stop experiencing it, and that comes with that decision we make. And that comes with knowing that whatever is true, the opposite is also true. There's another side of the story. So once you come into acceptance on all the things, all the truths, right? Like, you can say that person abused you, but you can also say, I allowed myself to be abused, right? Both things are true. So if you allow yourself to be abused, aren't you then the abuser? Right? By abusing your own boundaries, by not protecting yourself. That's a neglect. That's a form of abuse. Those kind of things, you know, and I'm not saying you need to turn it around and beat yourself up on everything. Keep it very simple. Only do what you need to do to resolve the lies that are coming into your awareness. And lies might feel really like bad, but like if that's the case, work with how you feel about that word, right? Because this is blatantly calling out deception and self-delusion. This is something that humans do. This is how we navigate life. We could actually replace these words with something much more gentle, I think. And maybe I will work on doing that going forward, because I don't kind of want to make us feel shamed or blamed when we talk about these things. And this is going to be kind of the theme going forward for a lot of us. Anything where we're resting in the lie is going to be putting pressure on us, right? So we need to be able to face those things and accept the truth and not fight against what is. for our ultimate success and freedom from repeating patterns, repeating karmic patterns, patterns that make us suffer. Okay, pick one. Remember, it's just information to reflect on, so only take what's useful to you and leave the rest. And that will complete your reading. I picked two. Okay, you chose the projection card. This is your reading. We're going to look at your situation a little bit before we look at the what needs to be said cards. You might be starting to feel some pressure coming from outside of you on your emotions, starting to might feel triggered or activated into a certain feeling. So it's a karmic pattern that's being activated in you right now or within the week. The pressure might have built up for a whole week. Within this activation, there is a special talent, it says. It makes it hard for you to have hope. This trigger makes it hard for you to have hope. We've also got 2 days now, so you might be in the process, or the next 2 days will be about clearing it. There's some mystery here. We got the mystery card. So something will be happening that's not going to be outlined in this reading. We have energy vampire and Capricorn. It's like you needed things to look and feel and be a certain way for you to feel comfortable in hope. And now that has been taken out away from you. And also, there's something here about I'm going to get more information before I talk about that. Let's see. A past life connection, a limiting belief, being in presence, and building confidence. So one of the things where a situation where you've lost hope is also an opportunity for you to build the confidence that you need to be hopeful through anything. And then even above hope would be to have faith. But you don't want to lose hope. So, it's like sometimes you need to take baby steps. So hope before faith sometimes. But you want to be able to have that in any situation that you're in. But that's basically knowing you can handle whatever arises. There's something transforming here. It may have been something affecting your health. And there could have been somebody else, a past life connection, that was Zeus-like. Someone who's authoritative, arrogant, unfair, bossy, maybe seemingly benevolent at times as well. Prideful. Okay, there's a projection here. So maybe this is the way you see this person, right? But there's also some of this in you. This is something that exists in the other person, or that you see existing, also exists in you. And it's been triggered in you. Let me see. Tell me why energy vampires here, please. There's this lack of boundaries almost. And going where you don't fit kind of energy, Cancer. there's some permeation of a boundary, or maybe a non-existent boundary, between caring and being unconditionally loving and nourishing and being structured. Like mother and father energy are at odds. Yeah, mother-father energy at odds in a way. So like that soft caring nature versus that structured solid nature. And like they're not compatible the way that they're being used right now. And that is draining your energy. That is draining your energy because of the imbalance in those energies between masculine and feminine. So are you using one or the other, you know? And if this is referencing some sort of authority figure, perhaps masculine, and that can be abusive of his authority at times, and you're projecting it, maybe there is like a hurt masculine part, and so maybe you are predominantly using your feminine. The feminine could have wounds as well. So maybe look up wounded feminine and wounded masculine and things like that to kind of see how those manifest, so that you can understand how you're using those energies, or how they can be cleared up for you or balanced out for you. But you are able to do this, okay? This is something that you're very capable of doing, and that you're also capable of being present with things how they are. So you know that this isn't working. You know that this is... The thing that you might be limited by is not taking it within yourself and only seeing it outside of yourself. But again, there's some sort of mystery here that I'm not able to see. This does seem to be an outer pressure. There's some sort of outer pressure. So it's either societal expectations or expectations of this other person, or expectations that maybe your parents put on you on how you operate in certain situations or among certain people or whatever. Tell me about outer pressure. It says breakthrough and shaman. Okay, so when you feel this pressure and you get to this point where it's like something's got to give, I can't do this anymore, that's good, because that means something is about to give. It is about to break through. And you may actually be pushed to that place where you are so desperate that you will try certain healing methods that you haven't been open to before. Something like soul retrieval, perhaps. That could be your special talent. Going back into your own energy to see where and why, whose energy are you mimicking that's wounded in the way that you're using it, so it's an imbalanced way of using that energy. And then can you give yourself what you actually needed in order to understand more fully, and do this in a meditation like a shaman would, to kind of regain that part of yourself, that wounded part of yourself, so that you can stop acting out the wound or having it activated in you, or projecting it onto the other, or needing the other to see it in. I think you really will be able to come to a point where you're grateful for this experience. The limiting belief is something about how you live day to day. Something about the way you live your life between work and play and day to day. Household responsibilities, work responsibilities, friendships, just everyday life. There's some sort of limitation in your belief system about how you operate with that. And you have adopted a way to cope with what you believe the situation is based on wounded masculine energy. So how Father handled it, or lack of Father. How Father handled it. And now, without knowing that that wound exists in you, you only see it in somebody else. You probably attract somebody else that can show it to you. Maybe they have it too. Maybe they have the same wound. But like, once you see it in them, kind of look for it in you. Because this is getting to a point where it's affecting your health potentially. So it's really kind of like, do this so that you can move through this energy, so that it doesn't kind of slow you down. And really what affected health does is just gives us some downtime in order to reflect. So you can just do that reflection now. Or if you need the downtime, you know, and your body goes into illness, don't panic. Just know that that's what it is. It's giving you time. But don't take that as truth for you if it doesn't feel true for you, okay? Now, given this being the situation, if this is your situation, what needs to be said? So these things that need to be said don't necessarily, you don't need to go out and say these things necessarily, okay? Sometimes these are things that just Spirit wants to say to you. Sometimes these will feel like things that someone needs to say to you. But if you kind of see it that way, then I urge you to kind of look again and see if it's something that you could switch around and you being the one who would need to say it. But not that you'd want to necessarily say it. That's all up to you. But the knowingness of what the Spirit's view of what needs to be said helps you kind of see a bigger picture view. That's where we're doing it. Thank you for the lessons. What needs to be said, thank you for the lessons. So knowing that this person who you're able to project onto is there as a service to you, so that you could actually like see this energy outside of you. What needs to be said, I had fun with you. So this is that kind of thing where it's like, it's both things, right? It's like where I said Zeus can be a benevolent being sometimes. Like sometimes you could have fun with Zeus, but also sometimes he's kind of arrogant and a jerk and puts you last, or stomps on your feelings, or, you know, whatever. I feel like we are bonded through past life. And that's true. And maybe that's something that needs to be said. Like maybe you need to admit that to yourself if you weren't already, or maybe that is a conversation that you want to have if you were ever having a conversation like this. But there's no indication here that you actually need to have this conversation. There are things in my bucket that say conversation, and nothing like that came out. Let's get together. What needs to be said? Let's get together. So maybe you will be having a conversation at some point. Maybe when you see close up, when you have another experience dealing with somebody like who's like this, maybe you get to be activated in that wounding pattern, or see it more clearly. So it's actually a get together that would serve you in another way. What needs to be said? I led you on. Well, that's interesting too, because my next thought, which I didn't say out loud after I had said, you know, getting together would serve this purpose of being able to see that wound again. My next thought was, but we don't want to use people like that. We don't want to just like get together with someone just so we can see our own wound, right? I just had that thought in her, and then I was like kind of questioning that in myself. And then the card that came out is what needs to be said. I led you on. So that's not necessarily what you want to do here, right? But maybe that's something that's been going on. And what needs to be said? I feel confused. So instead of leading someone on, maybe you want to say like, okay, I feel like we're bonded through past lives, and I just want to like see what this like interaction would bring for us. Like see if we can learn from it, you know, because we've got things for the lessons. See if we can just have fun, because having fun is a valuable thing as well. And then I feel confused. So that's kind of like not playing it like Zeus would, like I know everything and no one needs to tell me anything, but actually admitting that there's confusion here. Like I'm not clear on what is happening here. anyone who's in a triggered state, when you're activated, it's sometimes very hard to be clear. You're brought back to a state of seeing things through the lens of the wound. That's confusing. That's not the truth. The wound is there because it was a misunderstanding. That means it's not true. So it's confusing when you look at life through the lens of something that's not true. It's going to bring confusion. Okay. All right, very interesting. Now, remember, this is just information to reflect on. There is some alchemy going on here. We've got Scorpio and Pluto. So, alchemy and change in your way that you live day to day. So I think that's with your masculine energy. How do you use your masculine energy? I think an ideal way to use the masculine energy is to let it be informed. We have Cancer Capricorn here. Let it be informed by the intuition. That would be the Cancer energy, right? So you get your connection to spirit, and then you're through your feminine energy, you receive inspired information, and then your masculine energy acts on it. Doesn't try to talk you out of it, doesn't try to make sense out of it, but like acts on it. Trusts the feminine is getting valuable insights. Now, if the feminine is perceiving through the wound, that could get a little bit tricky, right? So it's okay to feel confused and still take action. You might be learning something. For those of us who have this issue with perfectionism and fear of being wrong, that's going to feel scary. You might be like, no way. I need to know that this is the right thing to do before I just do it. I get it. And I too had to work through the parts of myself that were afraid to make a mistake, and the parts of myself that wanted to understand before we did it. And I'm glad I did, you know. It's worth looking at those parts too and balancing out that energy too, because that would be your wounding getting in the way of your operating system and how you can trust yourself. And you want to actually build the confidence in trusting yourself. And the more you show yourself that you can trust yourself, the more you will trust yourself. It's just this perpetuation of that. Now, like I said, there's something unknown here. And so it could be anywhere between the outer pressure that you're feeling and the limiting belief. And what's draining your energy. So there might be more to know about that. I mean, the fact that it came out as a mystery, I hesitate to ask more about it. So I'm going to leave it at that, okay? Remember, this is just information to reflect on, so only take what's useful to you. And thank you for participating. Pick 3. You chose blame. Let's see what your situation is before we look at what needs to be said. Blame. So when we look at what needs to be said in a minute, I'll just explain this while I shuffle these. It's not necessarily go run out and say the thing. It could be something that spirit just wants to say to you or wants you to know. You might feel like it's something someone else should be saying to you. And in that case, I urge you to look again to see if it is something that you would say or needs to be said by you. But again, this doesn't mean run out and say it. This doesn't necessarily mean a real conversation needs to be had. Sometimes just knowing what spirit says, what that needs to be said. When spirit says what needs to be said, it can give us that bigger picture view and just add a bigger awareness to the situation we're in. If we feel it's appropriate to have the communication, then, by all means, but that's on each of us individually to decide, okay? So we have Progressed composite, so that's the evolution of a relationship. Trine, getting along. Truth. An ending. One day. Craft, which is my card that signifies like magic spells and like kind of stuff like that. Companion. Cleo, which is history. Clytia, unrequited love and blind desire. Decide. Melancholia. Happy-go-lucky. False. Influence. Conversation. Oh, this is interesting because in the last reading I said, look, there's nothing here indicating that you should actually have this conversation, but I mentioned that this conversation is in the bucket and it hadn't come out. But here it is. So this might be something that you really do want to have a conversation. That's up for you to decide, though. Remember, it's up to you and how if that feels appropriate for you. We got Hecate, Patientia, which is an asteroid signifying patience. Vibilia, which is truth. You got truth twice. MC, which is career or how the world sees you. And Sagittarius, higher learning, taking the high road. Finding the bigger meaning, the rainbow bridge. All right, let's look. I mean, I want to kind of say like, is it like a love spell that someone put on someone and then they were in the friend zone, but then they tried to make it more or something? It could have been something like that. If that rings true for you, okay, you're in the right place. I mean, there's just part of me that doesn't want to believe that that's true. Okay, so here, I'll go with it being the case. And if you are doing spells, you know, to try to achieve people's love or influence them and try to do anything, I just want to say, like, that is going to come back on you. It's not worth doing. Maybe you're already learning that. Maybe you've learned that. Spare yourself. Please spare yourself the damage, the trouble, the destruction of your own life. It's just not worth it, guys. Okay. All right, let's go back to this. Okay, so you don't have to pay, like, you're not going to have to pay for the damage you've done, like, for the rest of your life or anything. There is a point of, like, making the decision to raise your own standards on yourself and not do that anymore. And then you will be free of that, right? Like, it's as simple as that. Look at what made you decide to do that in the first place. Like, you know, where are those insecure parts of you? Where are the parts of you that need power, that are desperate, that are wanting to control, that are, you know, what's that all about? Dig in there and see. Okay? Because, you know, this could have been led by blind desire is the other thing for Clytia. Clytia fell in love, and then her love was deterred by someone else, fell in love with someone else, left her. And then Clytia, like, meddled in that relationship, telling on that other woman so that she got punished, and she actually got killed by her own father for something she had done. And Clytia thought that then her lover might come back to her, but he didn't. You know, he was not happy with that situation. But it was like her being blind to just reality and like fighting against what is, that made her do such a thing, which backfired. It didn't work for what she was trying to achieve at all. But also, like, unrequited love is what she experienced. So, like, her love was so strong, and it wasn't returned. But what I've come to in my study of unrequited love myself is like that it doesn't really exist, because love is what we are. So, like, she could love this other party, and she doesn't need them in her life. She doesn't have to possess them. She doesn't need him to leave his other love. You can love somebody from a distance. You can love somebody without possessing them. And that is something that is very important to learn here on Earth, I believe. Possession isn't love. Coercion isn't love. Manipulation, owning someone, none of that is love. Love is freedom. Love is compassion. Love does not need to hold on tight and own anything or manipulate, you know, or convince. Love can be present with melancholia. Love can be present with a friend. A friendship is okay for love, right? Like, if you're talking about, like, I don't want to be friends with this person, I want more than friendship, then we're looking at something different. That's now we're getting into the territory of desire. And desire can also get us in trouble, right? Like, if it leads us to do something like try to influence or manipulate somebody else, because that is our own karma that we're going to live out. That's all that could ever happen of it. You're never going to convince somebody to love you. Like, and if you did, like, that's not actually love. So, like, why would you lie to yourself that way? The truth is, there's a friendship here, though. There is an easy friendship here, it's true. Something has ended. And maybe it's time to see the higher meaning in it. It, like, served its purpose. The easy part was the purpose of it. The ease that was found in it. Something that was in the past that was easy, happy about it. That was it. That was it. And then something here was someone tried to influence or create something that wasn't that. And maybe it's blaming themselves for that. And maybe that's why I was going into this situation that I said, well, all you have to do is decide not to do it that way and learn what you need to learn about that situation and raise your standards on yourself. And then, you know, you're out of it. Like, you don't have to, like, make yourself suffer for the rest of your life just because you make a mistake in life. Mistakes are going to happen. We are going to learn. Like, that is what it's about. Got a few in my hand, so let's see what they say. Limitless possibilities, synastry. Like, there's something will shift after you learn what you need to learn about having been in this situation, this unrequited love situation, or this blind desire situation, this messing with someone, maybe putting a spell, maybe trying to do kind of influencing someone to make certain decisions. Learn what you need to learn and decide maybe to raise your standard. Decide not to do it anymore for whatever, you know, for the reason you find. Decide by knowing why you were doing it. First of all, you got to dig in there and neutralize the energy, right? You can't just like go in the other direction and say, well, I'm going to use all my will and not do that anymore, because that's not going to neutralize the energy. You really want to neutralize the energy so it doesn't start playing out again in your life, maybe meaning it could start happening to you instead of you doing it to someone else, or vice versa, if the energy is still there and it hasn't been neutralized. So neutralize the energy. And then what you open up is limitless possibilities for relationships. Maybe not that relationship, but maybe that relationship, but like possibilities that great relationships that you haven't even thought of yet, right? That you didn't know were possible. Exciting, new, fresh kind of stuff will be open to you after you resolve this karmic pattern for yourself. Anything else we should know about this? This is very interesting. Celebrate how far you've come each step of the way. 7 to 8 months is a time period that could be relevant to this. We've got Constantia, which is it's a good friend. It's someone that you're committed to. So like, I really do think that where there might have been some like shady stuff going on in this situation prior, I think once it's resolved and the karmic patterns are zero pointed, I think there is actually potential for a true companion, a friendship here that is patient, kind, loving, all the real things. Okay. But yes, there is, it's not available, absolutely not available. That says duplicated, and when we show duplication in a chart, it means something has to be resolved before the other thing can open up. So, no sense in blaming yourself or blaming the other or blaming someone for doing this. Just resolve the energies so you can get free of it. Let's see what needs to be said. Now, only take this, you know, if it's true for you, if it makes sense to you, if it resonates. We do have MC here, so this whole situation that I've talked about could have influenced your work or your reputation or how you're seen. And also it could have happened at work, you know. Also, it could be a job. So kind of just like the last reading. Let's get to know each other. Okay. What needs to be said? Let's get to know each other. And that's a recognition that you don't know each other, right? What needs to be said? I got offended. So this person who's doing the blame, maybe they did get offended when someone didn't return their love or rejected them or stuff like that. I have learned so much from this experience. What needs to be said? I've learned so much. Yeah, so like not all is lost. It wasn't for nothing, right? I have obligations. Okay? So perhaps an obligation to be patient, to be kind, to be truthful, right? To be true to myself. To my job. To be a good friend. You know, use it how it fits for you. Let me use this deck now. What needs to be said? The Star card came out, and it's just about healing. It's about a fresh, bigger picture view. Oh my gosh, I said fresh, bigger picture view, and Mint came out. Mint card literally means a fresh, fresh view. Love it. I love synchronicities. How about you? Just lets me know I'm in the flow, you know? Oh my gosh, you're not getting any words from this deck. This is like, I kind of see this as the king, but also the Joker. Kind of like, could be trickster energy here. Like, So just willing to be a fool, you know? Willing to start again, willing to be vulnerable, willing to have the heart on the sleeve kind of thing. Do you want children? That's something that definitely indicates that you don't know each other very well, right? That's an interesting conversation to have. Not necessarily a question you'd ask a friend, but like maybe there's just not much in this deck that they want to offer, because I'm still getting the pictures. This one's power. And so this is saying, like, don't deal, whatever you do, no matter what is said, don't do the power struggles. Be empowered enough to stand in your own truth. I want to know more. What needs to be said, I want to know more. What needs to be said, I'm sleepy. I'm sleepy can sometimes indicate that this person is not looking to expand their awareness at this time. So take that as it resonates. It may or may not be true. It could be literal sleep. Especially if they're working to avoid this situation, or you've been. Maybe when somebody asks you for an actual conversation and you're tired, maybe that's like, you need to say that. Like, I'm really sleepy right now. It's not a good time for me to have a conversation, but can we do it another time? You know, I have obligations to honor my need for sleep. You know, just especially if someone else hasn't been honoring you. We teach people how to treat us. So when you treat yourself very well, it calls people up to know that, you know, you're not someone who just lets someone walk all over you and who sacrifices yourself every time for someone else. Things like that. Okay. Pick 3. Remember, this is just information to reflect on, so only take what is useful to you and leave the rest. And thank you for participating. Perhaps we'll see you in a future reading. Bye.